Basic assumptions of social cognitive theory. Social cognitive theory has its roots in behaviorism. But over the past few decades, it has increasingly incorporated cognitive processes into its explanations of learning. It now provides a nice blend of ideas from behaviorism and cognitive psychology. It also addresses motivation to a greater extent than either the cognitive or behaviorist perspective, which provides a good transition to our discussion of motivation in the next theme. Social cognitive theory has developed in large part through the research efforts of Albert Bandura at Stanford University. Bandura was born in 1925, in a small town in Alberta, and obtained his undergraduate degree from the University of British Columbia. He completed graduate work at the University of Iowa. It seems fitting that a Canadian would find a way to blend two very different perspectives of learning. A 2002 survey ranked Bandura as the fourth most frequently cited psychologist of all time, behind Skinner, Freud, and Piaget, and as the most cited living one. In our case study of Nathan and in this cartoon, we can see one basic assumption underlying social cognitive theory: people can learn by observing others. In our discussion of operant conditioning, we found that learning is sometimes a process of trial and error. People try many different responses, increasing the ones that bring desirable consequences and eliminating the unproductive ones. Social cognitive theorists contend that people don't always have to experiment in this way. Instead, they can acquire many new responses simply by observing the behaviors of people around them. Social cognitive theory, like cognitive psychology, defines learning as an internal mental process that may or may not be reflected in the learner's behavior. Some of the things people learn appear in their behavior immediately, other things affect their behavior at a later time, and still others may never influence their behavior at all. For example, you might attempt to swing a tennis racket as soon as you learn the correct form. But you probably won't demonstrate that you've learned how to apologize tactfully until a time when an apology is necessary. And you might never walk barefoot over hot coals, no matter how many times you see someone else do it. Operant conditioning theorists believe that reinforcement is necessary for learning, in that responses increase only when they are reinforced. Some behaviorists have also argued that punishment is an effective counterpart to reinforcement, decreasing the frequency of a behavior it follows. Implied in the behaviorist perspective is the idea that reinforcement and punishment need to be directly experienced by the learner for changes in behavior to occur. Social cognitive theorists believe that reinforcement and punishment can also have indirect effects on learning and behavior. People who observe someone else getting reinforced for a particular behavior tend to exhibit that behavior more frequently themselves, a phenomenon known as vicarious reinforcement. For example, watching the consequences that their classmates experience, students might learn that studying hard leads to good grades, that being elected to class office brings status and popularity, or that neatness counts. Conversely, when we see someone else get punished for a certain behavior, we are less likely to behave in the same way ourselves, a phenomenon known as vicarious punishment. For example, when a coach benches a hockey player for unsportsmanlike conduct, other players will be less likely to mimic such behavior. But unfortunately, vicarious punishment may suppress desirable behaviors as well. For example, when a teacher belittles a student for asking a silly question, other students may be reluctant to ask one of their own. As teachers, we must be extremely careful that we don't vicariously reinforce undesirable behaviors or vicariously punish desirable ones. If we give too much attention to a misbehaving student, others who want our attention may misbehave as well. If we ridicule a student who unwittingly volunteers an incorrect answer or erroneous belief, classmates will hardly be eager to respond to our questions or express their ideas and opinions.